My тут в Канаді, ми є з вами. You can't just forget where you come from.
If Angela Merkel, if Obama, remember, Obama, he pressed the reset button.
The very corrupt ones that are there, they're going to be held accountable.
The deaths of people, so many young people, 17-year-old, 21-year-old, 44, all ages, but to kick that door down.
It's very tragic. It's freedom of speech, the human rights. To think that you can't have that.
It was actually the students, the people who rose up, feeling, thinking people of principle who are not acting just for money, but with their heart, their soul, and to preserve their family and their country.
The people have shown their power through the Maidan.
We are speaking with a representative from Ukrainian community here in Ottawa. This time it is Tetiana. Why you are participating in that movement, supporting people in your old country?
Well, I think it's very important that Ukraine, it's very young, very important for Ukraine to have a chance to get out from under Russia's thumb. Because although Ukraine has been independent since 1990, it hasn't really had a chance to be its own country and to thrive, and the people have largely been oppressed, and the same sort of communist type of regime has been in power under the guise of democracy. So I'm very excited that Yanukovych was impeached. I think it's a very important step.
In the year 2014, we still have such regimes in existence, and they are accepted. Many lives could be saved if, for example, European Union acted 3 weeks ago.
It's very tragic. Sorry. It's just such a tragedy that this is what had to happen for things to change.
Tatiana, tell me, because you live in Ottawa, you were born here? Mm-hmm. What I admire in people like you, that you don't cut off the ties to your country of your parents, the country of your grandparents. What makes you do that? What makes you that you are still watching what is happening, you are interested in, and you are willing to act?
Well, the way that I was raised by my parents and my grandparents came from Ukraine here, so it was always very important and part of our lifestyle to go to Ukrainian school, to be involved in the Ukrainian community, and to learn the importance and the culture, the cooking, everything about Ukrainian life. It's important to continue that on. That's what I was always taught. So,
tradition.
Yeah, tradition is very important, and you can't just forget where you come from. I think it's very important for all things to know your history and to know the country that you come from. It's been a long time since I've been in Ukraine. It was in 1995 that I was there to see the villages of my grandparents where they came from. My grandfather and my grandmother came to Ukraine after World War II. So it's just been ingrained in me that, we're Ukrainian, we're also Canadian, but it's very important, and you should be proud of your heritage. So.
And this is like two-way highway interaction, because I think that the fact that people, Ukrainians across the world, also in Canada, they were taking a protest in the front of the Canadian Parliament, saying, going to embassies, it did have an impact that you are making the history happen, also showing these people, your support. I remember back in communist Poland, before solidarity movement, when it was kind of tension or fight or political changes, we were listening to the radio, foreign radio, and when we were hearing that people, Poles in USA or Canada, are protesting, supporting us, it was giving us a boost. And I think this is what you have done to the people in Ukraine.
Well, we hope so. I mean, in this case, social media with Facebook and Twitter, that has been very important, because that's how the people in the Maidan have been communicating with the rest of the world. So I think it's important to show them that, of course, we support what they're doing. And I think that it was coming from all over the world. Even in the past week, I've seen photos of vigils honoring the victims, and it's all over the world. And it's amazing to see how this really brought the Ukrainian diaspora together all over the world.
So what was your reaction when you have learned that they are just shooting with the live ammunition people like during the war on the streets?
Honestly, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I saw the videos. Yeah. I spent the past couple of days just watching online and social media and looking at the video. I mean, it's horrible that in 2014 human beings are treated like animals.
And also torturing people. You have seen what they have done to the people, right?
Yeah, because they disagree. I mean, it's freedom of speech, the human rights. To think that you can't have that.
Game is not only about Ukraine. Our previous president, who was killed in Smolensk crash, Mr. Kaczynski, he said when it was a similar situation in Georgia years ago, he called several presidents, flown to Georgia to show the support, and he said, well, I remember, this is, as a Europe, we have to show solidarity and support for countries or nations who are threatened with lack of independence, because if we don't. So first is Georgia, then second is Ukraine, the third will be Poland, right? Mm-hmm. Tell me how to avoid the situation that the wrong people would be put to justice and they won't be back in the seats of power.
It's a very good question. We're so happy that Yanukovych is impeached and he's out, but there's always the fear of, it's very uncertain right now. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm very hopeful. I think everyone in Ukraine is hopeful as well that those people, you know, the very corrupt ones that are there, they're going to be held accountable. They're not going to be able to continue to be in politics. It's time for a shift. That's what the young people that started with the students, that's what they want. It's time for the people to have a voice in Ukraine instead of, you know, the politicians, you know, the 1% ruling the rest of the country. It's time for the whole country to have a say in how it's being run. And I think, you know, everyone is very hopeful. Of course, we're maybe a little bit worried because we're not sure what's going to happen. The Ukraine needs to just start again. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to do. How do you start from nothing when the whole system is corrupt?
How you assure the transparency and the justice? I am going back again to the situation in Poland. We were fighting, it was a solidarity movement, and everyone fought, and many people think around the world. But yes, Poland is somehow independent in democracy, but the irony of that is that because of the state of the war and injustice and lack of transparency, the same bad guys who were oppressing for years in army, in secret services, in Communist Party, they took back power. They are running media, they are running banks, they are running institutions. So we have the situation very often that fighters for solidarity movement, they don't have money for living. And the guys who were making orders to shoot people in the past are very important political figures. We have to make sure that it will not happen in Ukraine again.
Exactly. We need to start fresh, have a new system almost, because there's very few people in Ukraine and the oligarchs, and they have all the money, whereas the rest of the people, they have nothing. There's no jobs.
That's correct.
It's not. There's no minimum standard of living in Ukraine, and everyone deserves to have that. And I hope that the people have shown their power through the Maidan. So I think this is really the beginning of something new, and hopefully,
but it is a very fragile point. At this point, you can just switch it over.
Then that's the difficult thing is there's not one thing.
That's correct.
You know, we've had this conversation amongst ourselves as to how do you change a country, and I don't personally know how exactly that happens, but I think transparency is a very big part of that. And
don't you think that people like you who are living in the West and who are experienced and who have a little bit more comfort living in modern societies and are connected with your grandfather's country, that you guys supposed to form a network of teams to be sent back to Ukraine to watch, to supervise transparency and democracy. You know what I am saying?
Well, I know that in the previous elections, Canada sent the election observers. My younger sister went, actually, and I was just saying that I will go this time. I would like to be involved in that. I think it's really important because last time they sent people and there was documentation of corruption. You know, they were buying votes because the people are so poor. They're giving them sugar, meat, things they don't have, so it's very hard for them to say no. But I think this time, I really hope it'll be a little bit different because sort of the system has been exposed and the rest of the world, maybe they weren't aware as to what was going on in Ukraine. Всі, що є на Майдані, то є дуже добре, що Янукович, ми вже його забрали. Треба Путіна також забрати, і треба мати нарешті вільну державу. І ми тут в Канаді, ми є з вами, ми є ззаду вами. Слава Україні!
Good day, this is the 22nd of February. We are in Ottawa, Ontario, again and meeting very important figures from Canadian Ukrainian community. Mr.
Taras Pidzamecky.
You represent?
Well, I'm the past national president of the Ukrainian National Federation. I'm here in Ottawa. We're having a local meeting about our leadership development program we do in Canada. And but in my daily life, business life, I'm the chief executive officer of Ukrainian Credit Union Limited.
Okay, in Toronto.
Our head office is in Toronto, but we have 16 locations across the province of Ontario.
16?
16 here in Ottawa, Thunder Bay, Niagara Peninsula, Hamilton, Windsor, London, throughout.
So you represent very significant financial institution in Canada.
Yes, yeah, that's right. We, in terms of our branch network, we're a large credit union, and we service communities large and small. In Toronto, of course, there's a very large Ukrainian population, but here in Ottawa, there's a significant population in all these communities. So we're their financial arm, we're a financial cooperative, and we support a lot of community activities with donations, schools, contributions even towards the various demonstrations here happening in Canada in support of the Maidan. We're all over the place.
The reason I ask you for having this interview is the situation today as we speak in Ukraine. What do you think about it?
I follow the news very closely. I drove into Ottawa last night, didn't get to bed till 1 a.m., but I was up to date. But when I woke up this morning and started reading the news, it was breathtaking. It took my breath away to see that the Verkhovna Rada in such vast majorities voting for a new speaker, voting, well, of course, right now to strip Viktor Yanukovych of presidential powers, just the turn of events so quickly. And I guess it was clearly, it was rotting, and all it took was, well, unfortunately, the deaths of people, so many young people, 17-year-old, 21-year-old, 44, all ages, but to kick that door down, because that whole regime obviously was teetering. It's just very sad that a week and a half ago or a week ago, when Parliament was ready to vote on to go back to the Constitution of 2004 to limit the presidential powers, and Yanukovych raced to Parliament and swore at them and threatened them, and they voted. Had they just done that, imagine we would have saved all these lives, all these innocent lives, including the police. You know, I'm talking the people that were getting shot by snipers, I guess they will answer their conscience and criminally, and certainly Yanukovych and his regime, they're fleeing like rats.
Yeah, he's in hiding, right?
Yeah, well, he's in Kharkiv. You know, he could have done even 2 weeks ago the right thing. He could have done various things, but incapable. I think it's so emblematic of you know, the dying throes of, you know, dictators. Ceausescu didn't get it.
That's correct.
None of them got it, and he didn't. They built up their own little reality. They thought that they could keep robbing the people and beating them. And the thought, even over the last 2 or 3 weeks, that they would continue to harass people, beat them, kidnap them, kill them, and have these thugs do that. What were they thinking? Clearly, they say once, a thug, always a thug. And unfortunately, it's come to this, and he's up to his elbows, if not deeper, in blood.
Don't you think that European Union missed the point big time?
Well, look, you
2
know,
weeks ago.
I think there's a few points here. I think that was very interesting how this started. These weren't the politicians. It wasn't the trio. It was actually the students, the people who rose up. They had enough, and I was in Ukraine just recently as last August, and just talking to people, you knew that at some point something was going. These are normal, educated, cultured, tolerant people. But the pillage, the criminality, it was so bad they was going to blow. So of course, yes. 2 weeks ago, if Angela Merkel, if Obama, remember Obama, he pressed the reset button.
That's correct.
Right, he really reset it. He thought, you know, Putin, I guess, thought he could do whatever he wanted.
Wow.
And Merkel, you know, they're always, remember, she was going to build a gas pipeline under the Baltic. Unfortunately, a lot of hypocrisy. But our Ukraine's greatest friend, Poland, because Poland, of course, was a victim of Russia and the Soviet Union, you know, historically. They understood. Within the European Union, I think that Poland will be shown to have been the more far-sighted country that actually understood things. And I'm glad the European Union's on side, but they could have done more sooner. And even with this association, they could have got a lot more in terms of the financial end. And they thought they could be in bed with the dictator Putin and help Ukraine. You got to be principled.
Even the statements, more clear statements, of showing the position, not trying to please.
The demonstrators were saying, or even before, I guess the three of the opposition leaders, Yatsenyuk, Klitschko, and Tyahnybok was in Germany, I think the first two. They went to meet with Merkel. They said, the night before, Klitschko says, we need more than, we need something, not just sounds. We need some kind of actions. You're right, and clearer statements.
The support would be more significant from Poland if it would be still President Kaczynski in charge.
And I always think back to that plane crash in Smolensk, that big question mark,
big question mark,
to this day.
What is your reaction that in today's world, this is the year 2014, they were bringing forces and police and shooting with the live ammunition on the streets? Well,
I mean, what do I think? You got to think of what is the mentality of those people that were in power. Clearly, they never had European minds, never really, they may own property in Western Europe, but they certainly didn't have those values, right? They were getting desperate. They thought, they deluded themselves that they could get away with this, that somehow with the kulak, with the fist.
That's correct.
Now remember, when Yushchenko won the presidential election in 2004 and beat out Yanukovych, all Putin knew was kulak, the fist. They're not very nuanced. Well, you know, KGBs aren't very nuanced. All they understand is maybe psychological pressure and force. So they, you know, when they're faced with feeling, thinking people of principle who are not acting just for money, but with their heart, their soul, and to preserve their family and their country, it's no competition. Unfortunately, they didn't get the message.
It is no competition. It is no democracy.
No.
There is no partnership.
No, you know, and the whole thing, the crazy stuff was for continuing dialogue with the regime. Of course, if there was some room to do this to avoid, you know, bloodshed, but that regime was never intent on negotiating.
Well, of course.
And I just pray to God very sincerely that given the events, that somehow we avoid further bloodshed. That there could still be, you know, the leadership. These guys from Kharkiv, you know, they've taken off already to Russia. They've escaped. So as somebody said, or I was just reading on the BBC World, not a very glorious last stand. But there could be elements of people that could try to create all sorts of problems. Not to mention, you know, who knows? Russian Federation. They must have their people all over there. I mean, you know. But you know, but first and foremost, it's the people of Ukraine who live in East and West at this time have to use their heads. And by the way, I'm not there to give anybody advice because I was not on the streets. I wasn't freezing for 3 months. My son was not killed.
But
you know, at the same time, they have to think broadly. If democracy, justice, those are very big terms. They mean certain things. They mean it's not also, it means it's not mob rule. It's got to be done in a very systematic, just fashion because the world is now watching Ukraine, right? Now, At the same time, if people are threatened with guns and assassins and snipers, well, you're not going to sit there and read texts. You need to defend yourself.
The world is watching Ukraine because how it ends,
Yes.
it will shape entire Middle Europe politically for the next maybe 200 years. So this is very important that people are not willing to give up.
No, and in fact, you saw the people, they didn't care that Parliament was called and they say, we're staying here until we see the end. And you got to ask yourself, is this unreasonable? How come they wouldn't let the talks, you know, how could I put it, why they wouldn't agree just to have him in office still, even for a little bit? Because once you push to this point, and after seeing what he was capable of, there's absolutely zero trust.
Of course.
And of course, there's very low trust of politicians in general, including the opposition. And there's always been these people, very intelligent people, that always been trying to connect the Maidan with the people in Parliament.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, yeah, maybe they made some errors, this, that, and the other thing, but look, those are our voices in Parliament, and we need to work together. You can criticize them, but now we need to take your anger and your sacrifices and turn them into something that can be sustainable.
My question is how to avoid the mistakes we have done in Poland, or we were led to, or manipulated to. We, Solidarity, people in Poland, we thought, okay, we want it, we have it, we got it, and then it was under the table, a secret deal. In the matter of the fact, 10, 20 years later, the same people who were shooting people on the streets, who were collaborating with Moscow, they are in power now.
You know, when I went to Ukraine last August, a little bit off topic perhaps, I flew LOT National Airlines, and I got to watch a movie. It was like a drama, and it was a very disturbing, and how they, basically what it looked like, what they were doing in Ukraine, just shooting innocent people coming to work in a factory, etc., etc. This is happening now, remember, 20 years after. Now, having said that, I think there's a lot of the bureaucracy is no longer there. But what's happened instead, the people who, oligarchs, the people who are finance, have property and interest, well, they're still sitting in that regime, right? Some people say, I did well under all regimes. It didn't matter if it was, you know, fascist or communist. I always did well because they know how to, you know, circulate. So then the question comes, in South Africa, they had Truth and Reconciliation Commission, right? Correct? I don't know if they actually reconciled. The people actually have a sense of justice. Because the problem has always been, and I think it's a balance here, your society must move forward. You're not going to imprison everybody. On the other hand, and you want to have some sort of reconciliation, but can there be reconciliation without justice? If you're saying the same people that were suppressing the people before are in power, it still stinks, it still reeks of injustice. So the question is, how does the new government in Ukraine, how do they deal with this in a way that maintains the solidarity of the country and still, for example, the people who are responsible for ordering the killings, starting with the president and the other ones who haven't escaped, etc., to have justice. There has to be, but it has to be done in a systematic, just way as possible.
Yes, but
because that's going to be the credibility factor for Ukraine.
Lack of justice. We are not talking revenge. We are not talking, okay, we hang you, put you to the prison, but stripping from the functions. Yes. Stripping, sending out of the society.
Well, interesting on that point. There's been so much. There wasn't even talk about imprisonment, but stripping them of all their wealth. Because a lot of that wealth has been attained by stealing from government coffers, by killing, by extortion. So just start where you were, and if you're a billionaire, well, why, you know, let's just knock you back down to the average guy to start. That's real justice. And what they just wanted, justice in their life. I mean, not even at the criminal element, but then when you see people stealing and living and treating, the worst part, treating everybody else with contempt. Even the communists used to hide everything they could buy in their special state stores. They weren't allowed to show off, but they lived very well, you know. And here, they're flaunting it. There's one, a baba's begging in the street because her pension is too small, and these people dressed nice, driving nice cars, and parking wherever they want, etc. It's trivial, but it's this entitlement. It's the contempt for your society.
That's I am very impressed with the solidarity of Ukrainian community in Canada, because usually when you see such political need for action, there is many divisions between people who are living within the same nation. What I'm seeing, you guys went to parliament, all the groups, you went to the embassies. Congratulations on that, because I think you have your deal in that support.
Yeah, well, this is, you know, this is a historic, and it's also a fateful day. It's do or die for Ukraina. It's a do or die situation, so we have to rally, obviously.
Thank you very much. With Taras Pidzamecky for the Polish, Canadian Polish Independent TV, who was speaking Wacław Kujbida. Thank you very much. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.